In this video, we're going to use factoring to solve equations. Right? So we're going to be presented with some equations to solve, and then the technique we're going to do first is factoring. And then by factoring, it's going to make these really easy to solve. All right, so let's take a look at this one. 6x squared minus 18x is equal to 0. All right, and what we're going to do is we're going to factor this. Right? And you'll see why that is going to be so useful in a second. All right, so if we factor out the greatest common factor is going to be 6x, right, which will leave us with x minus 3 inside. Right? Still have this equation, and always double check. 6x times x, 6x squared, 6x times negative 3, negative 18x. Right? So we've done our first step by factoring. Why is that so useful? Well, because remember the zero product property, right, which says if we have a product of 0, right, the only way that's going to be true is if one of the factors is equal to 0, right? The only way I can multiply something times something and get 0 is if one of the factors is 0. So this means that either 6x equals 0 or x minus 3 is equal to 0, right? And if 6x is 0, the only way that's true is if x is 0, right? I can show that, right? If I divide both sides by 6, we get x equals 0. On the other one, I could add 3 to both sides, and we get x equals 3. Right? So the two solutions are 0 and 3. Right? And I can write this like this. X is either equal to 0 or it's equal to 3. Let's do another one. Negative 2x cubed plus 10x is equal to 0. Right? Again, what we want to do is factor this first. The greatest common factor that I'm going to pull out here is going to be negative 2x. Right? Remember, if your first term is negative, right, you want to pull out that negative. Okay, it's not necessarily wrong if you don't, but there's going to be some times in the future where this is useful. So it's a good idea to get in that habit. Okay, so negative 2x, if I pull that out, what do I have left? I have x squared minus 5. Double check that. Negative 2x times x squared, that's negative 2x cubed. Negative 2x times negative 5 is positive 10x. Right? And again, using the zero product property, if this factor times this factor is equal to 0, the only way that that's true is if either negative 2x is equal to 0 or x squared minus 5 is equal to 0. Right? Let's solve these two equations. This first one, if I divide both sides by negative 2, we get x equals 0. There's a solution. For the second one, let's add 5 to both sides, and we get x squared is equal to 5. Right? To solve this one, we need to take a square root of both sides. We end up with the absolute value of x is equal to radical 5, which implies that x could either equal radical 5 or x could equal negative radical 5. All right, let's put the whole thing together. We know x is either equal to 0 or it's either to radical 5 or negative radical 5. There are two more, and these I would like you to do. So please pause and solve this by factoring. Let's check your work now. Right, this one, let's factor out the greatest common factor, which would be 5x. So we have 5x times 2x plus 1 equals 0. Right? And if this is true, using the zero product property, that implies that either 5x is equal to 0 or 2x plus 1 is equal to 0. All right, so let's solve these. Divide both sides by 5 here, and we get x is equal to 0. For the second equation, I can subtract 1. I get 2x equals negative 1. And then divide both sides by negative 2. I get x is equal to negative 1/2. Right? So my two solutions are x could either equal 0 or it could equal negative 1/2. Last one, I'd like you to solve this by yourself. So please pause and do it. All right, welcome back. Let's see how you did. All right, let's factor out the greatest common factor. In this case, it's going to be negative 5x. And that will leave us inside here with x squared minus 12. Right? Using the zero product property, if these two factors multiply to get 0, that means one of them has to be 0. So either negative 5x is 0 or x squared minus 12 is equal to 0. Right? Let's solve these. First one, let's divide by negative 5. We get x equals 0. Second one, let's add 12 to both sides. And so we get x squared is equal to 12. We're going to need to do a square root here. We have end up with the absolute value of x equals, and 12, if we show our work here, this is 4 times 3 and 2 times 2, which is radical 2 times radical 2 times radical 3. So that is the same thing as 2 times the square root of 3. Alright, so that implies our answers are x is either equal to 0, or x is equal to positive 2 radical 3, or x is equal to negative 2 radical 3.